Hi, I'm Coleman from jaxcenter.com, and I'm here today with Eric Evans, our keynote speaker at the JAX, and also the man who wrote the book, literally, on domain-driven design. Eric, perhaps you can start out by giving us a sense in general of what domain-driven design is all about.
So what is domain-driven design all about? The fundamental point that I made, and the reason that it's called that, is to say that when we're developing software, our focus shouldn't be primarily on technology. It should be primarily on the business or whatever activity it is that we're trying to assist with the software, the domain. And so that's what I meant by domain-driven design. And then specifically, we approach that by trying to develop models of that domain and make our software conform to that so that it's a much more conceptually based design than what might be typical.
Okay. Great.
So,
Okay.
I don't know how
sums it up, I
long
guess,
you want me to talk. I could talk about what is domain-driven design for an hour or two or
And
whatever.
you just have, indeed, in the keynote.
Indeed.
I suppose, yeah.
That was 30 minutes. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Well, then maybe we can keep going with a question about microservices then. So, I mean, that's one of the things we've been hearing a lot about in the conference, the breakup of larger, older IT systems into smaller units, smaller release cycles, containers, microservices. Is domain-driven design something that can help us out with microservices then?
Yeah, well, initially my interest was because I think microservices can help teams that are trying to do domain-driven design. That was my focus. And
Okay.
so when I started hearing about it, I said, we need to adopt that. Because one of the biggest problems when you're modeling is that you're always within a big system where a lot of other people are doing a lot of things. It's kind of a rough and tumble environment conceptually. And so you create these very subtle concepts that have these subtle relationships in your model. And then they just get knocked to pieces by all of the stuff that they have to integrate with. So, if you imagine, building a house of cards, but in the middle of a children's playground, that's kind of, it wouldn't last very long.
Okay, yeah.
So what the microservices does is sort of lets you create a little sealed area where you really could construct a house of cards and keep it from tumbling down, if that's what you need. I mean, not all models need to be so subtle, but some do. And so the part of the microservice thing that interests me most isn't the technology, though I do like the new technologies for service interfaces and such. But it's really that attitude of isolation and autonomy. We don't share our database. We don't share our code. We don't share our deployment. And, our team makes its own decisions. And so that level of isolation and autonomy allows you to do the kind of modeling that we're advocating.
Okay, great. So to use your house of cards analogy breaking up your team into smaller microservices and smaller units essentially brings with it the risk that parts of those teams might be fragile houses of cards, I suppose, right? What happens when they are that fragile?
So, of course, the metaphor house of cards is a tricky one because it suggests something that's too fragile to survive. Right. And I think most of your models probably shouldn't be like that. Maybe they should be more like a house of little play bricks, right? So you stack those up, but still those won't stay stacked up in an intricate position in the middle of a children's playground where they're all running around either. It will get knocked over. So no matter what the only thing that will survive in that environment is a bunch of stuff just laying out flat in the ground, or stuff that it doesn't matter if it gets knocked from one place to another. So no wonder our system designs tend to look like they do. So what I'm really getting at, though, is it's a messy kind of environment that we develop these big systems in. And we have to acknowledge that up front. So if there are some things that we want to do that are subtle and complex, then we need to create an environment where we can actually do that intricate work. But it doesn't have to be a very big environment, but it has to have a good boundary around it. We call that a bounded context. Not everything needs that degree of protection, but some things do. And then we'll have a number of them. And it's true that not every team will succeed. And one thing I like about the microservices attitude is it does have this notion that some things fail. Well, some things fail at the development and conceptual design level as well. And we want to create an overall system that's robust enough to say that even if we have some very bad design decisions made by that team over there, it isn't going to ruin the design that I've created over here. You need that, or we simply won't have good design anywhere. And in a monolithic system, that's where you end up, is with no good design anywhere, because you don't have that kind of boundaries. So as soon as people start making poor choices, the consequences of their choices spread. And eventually you just have a big ball of mud, as we sometimes affectionately call it.
Great. Okay. Well, Eric, thank you very much for your time. And
Thank
cheers
you.
to all of you for watching.